You're both doing worldview apologetic training, equipping the church, equipping families, but also both in law enforcement. So I'm curious, how did that happen? You've got, because we know, and those who have read Jim's books know that it's not just you, but your dad was in law enforcement.
Right.
You were in law enforcement.
Mhm.
Now Jimmy's in law enforcement. So I'm really curious on that story, like how that seems old school, right? Where
Very.
a
Blue bloods.
family
Mhm.
is in the same profession from generation
Yeah.
to generation. So how did this happen?
Well, I probably should say that the biggest thing that influenced me was watching him in ministry, and that made me go into full-time ministry. But as a kid, what I remember was sitting around the family table. I'd go to my great-grandparents' house every summer in Texas. That's where all my extended family was. And he'd tell some story of some hellacious crime scene that he'd seen.
Mhm.
And then my grandfather, who'd be sitting next to him, would come back with another story. And I remember one in particular. I don't remember what murder you were talking about, but I remember it was very gruesome. And then I remember my grandfather talked about, oh yeah, that reminds me of a time when I opened the door to some room and there was like a pool of congealed blood all along the floor because they've been dead for so long. And as a kid, I just remember thinking, no one I know's family talks like this,
No.
just hanging out, just casually. Like this was just not even a big deal story. You guys are just telling, stories catching up on life, like any family would.
Talk around the water cooler.
probably
And
should not
so I
include
think I
that.
kind of drank the Kool-Aid early on police work. And as a kid, I always would have said, if you asked me, what are you going to be? I always said, I'll be a police officer. And then I think maybe in high school or something, I started thinking, hey, is this like a little kid's dream? Is this really what I want? Or I've always been saying it, but is this really like real? And so I think there was a little bit of time where I tried to figure out, is there something else I want to do? But I just could not shake the law enforcement thing. And I just followed the family in. Basically, all the people that I knew growing up, especially before you were saved, all your friends who came over for parties were cops.
Yeah.
You still brought them like on all the big holidays where you could get non-believers to come to church, Easter, Christmas, all the cops came with us,
Yeah.
My
That's
uncle
true.
was a cop, grandfather was a cop. My uncles who weren't cops were in the military. So this just kind of seemed like this is what you did in our family. This was just like a matter of fact kind of thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it actually speaks to the importance of, I guess, having those conversations. I'm thinking of a dad who often goes off to work and is gone 9 to 5 or whatever, comes home and then doesn't talk anything about it, say anything about his work to his kids. And this just sounds like it's part of your culture. It was woven in. And that is obviously one of the ways that we get our kids excited about the things that we're excited about or interested in things that we're interested in. And I mean, that just is, as you're saying that, I'm thinking, oh gosh, that's a little discipleship insight there.
Yeah.
Right? Talk about those things. You talked about law enforcement and then.
No, that's true. Remember that? I don't know if you remember this movie Jaws from years ago. This movie about the big shark, right? Okay, it was at the time it came out. It was like one of those culture-changing Steven Spielberg movies. And there's a scene in there where they're in between battles with this shark. They're sitting in their small boat, and they're all the four, I think 3 or 4 guys are exchanging stories about their battles with big fish or with sharks. And this guy will say, you see this scar right here? Oh, let me show you this. And you pull up his shirt and got another scar over here. And they're like comparing scars. And I think the cops are really notorious for doing that. These war stories will always sit around and share war stories with each other. And that's what he was seeing me and my dad do. And that's part of the culture. I think there's a certain, to do the job, you have to be a certain kind of person. And that you're probably going to be somebody who will share a war story.
Well, and think about that. I mean, apply that to the faith. Right. We should be having those war story conversations about the faith, about, hey, I was, whether it's during your job or whether it's with a neighbor or whoever, having those kind of conversations with our kids.
Well, and I'm a huge sports fan. I mean, you are too. And we all know who your team is. But I bet you if I asked Jimmy right now, who's the football team that I am the biggest fan of?
I would have no idea. I would just say UCLA. That's it.
Yeah.
I would have no real idea.
No idea. Because although it's important to me, I don't, that's just not the ethos of what we're going to talk about. All the way over here to your house, what are we talking about? Theology.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I would say that's a failure on your part as
I know. Yeah.
I mean, if I ask my kids, hey, who do we cheer for?
Yeah, right. They would know. But see, for us, it's
and
like
then they
this,
would offer a burnt offering to the
exactly. So here's my whole point is that I tell people all the time is that you ask, well, what can I do to get my kids interested in this? Well, you don't have to ask me that question about your favorite team. They're already interested in it. You're raising up fans, no problem. But raising up fellow believers, that's harder.
I think that the idea, though, that the dinner conversation, actually, maybe this just tells you how much I care about food. The dinner conversation actually also is kind of my story for coming to faith. I don't know about coming to faith like initially, but my perspective of Christianity was also influenced by these dinner conversations with him, because I was 8 or 9, or however old I was when you became a Christian. He'd invite these new Christian friends over, and they would just debate vigorously these questions about what's the nature of free will versus God's will, or grace versus works, or whatever theological issue. And so for me, the framework that I saw Christianity through was this idea of these really deep, difficult discussions, maybe discussions where we can't even quite get the answer, but we're going to seek this answer about God. That became really foundational to how I viewed Christianity as well. So I think that's why I always took the same interest in apologetics that you did, because I just saw this. There's a lot of life in these conversations about God just around the dinner table with friends that you just invite over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but he's got a sister, Annie, who just in the last year has really her faith has kind of lit up. And so now I can, every morning I text her or whatever I'm going through, and Emma. So I've got 3 grandchildren, and each kid's got a Bible, and I get in it every day and I journal in the Bible, so that in the end, when they're 13, I can give them each a Bible that is complete with notes from me. Maybe they'll never read it. I don't know. But every morning I'm getting up and I'm journaling in Emma's Bible, and I'm texting it to Annie. And because she's in this, like you were, like we were brand new Christians, we were on fire to figure this stuff out. Like that is that moment when you are ready to consume everything biblical. I mean, every kind of Bible thing you can think of, you're interested in consuming it. And so that's why we got struck when the iron was hot with him.
Well, I love the picture around the kitchen table, and our families have been friends for a long time, so we do a lot of things that are
Similar,
the same.
yeah.
And of course,
we probably learned them from you guys.
Lots of debating around.
No, you're older. We learned them from you.
Oh, jeez. There we go. How long did it take him to get there? 10 minutes. He had to get to that. 10 minutes. That's amazing.
Lots of debating around the kitchen table, but we also got, for a number of years, to do church with you guys, and it was a house church. It met at your house, and of course, Jimmy, you were, I think, in high school around that time. But I loved the nature of the culture in our house church, because that's, for me, I think it was the first time I had a glimpse of how probably the early church did it. And that's something that we're getting to do now again. But this, not removing the kids, but having us all together. And of course, Jimmy, you weren't a kid, you were a high schooler, but oftentimes in modern churches, we just split up. But in our church, it was just at your guys' house, we're all together. And so even our teaching was very, very much a dialogue, and young people or old people asking questions. And there was just a culture in our house church of no questions off limits. And everyone is still kind of seeking and searching, even though we were believers, but there were still things theologically we were trying to wrap our heads around or figure out. And we didn't remove our kids. Our kids were even younger. Like Ella, who's now 17, was just a toddler back then. But it was just a part of the culture, I know, of your family. It's a part of the culture of our family, but also it was in the culture of our church.
Well, you remember, I think we were doing church when Ella was born, because I remember I took a picture. I was struck by how much she looked like Brett as a baby. So remember, I took a picture of Ella's face, and I photoshopped it onto Brett's head, and then Brett's face, and photoshopped it onto Ella's body.
I remember that.
And we put that in front of the group.
And we couldn't tell the difference.
We couldn't tell the difference. Anyway, but I thought,
great time.
But you remember, that was a church where we had some folks there who were older, who were in their like 60s, like my age now. And they had come out of the traditional church where you have affinity groups, where you're sending your kids to their group, and they're not going to be in the big church with you. Yes. And I remember at some point he says, this has got to, and he was talking about you guys and Tim's kids and kids who were like on the floor. Like we'd be talking about something and the kids are on the floor at your feet playing with Duplos. That's just the nature of this kind of church. Yeah. And I remember it was too distracting for me. He said, this has got to end. You've got to get them out of the room. And I said, I totally understand. And in the end, they left the room. They didn't stay with us, because we can't compromise that. Yeah, we did try, okay, maybe we could have something that would be more age appropriate for the benefit of the kids, not for the benefit of the room. But it turns out that it's just better to leave those. And if you like a clean, not quiet, orderly church experience, then it's not for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you see how the culture of a family, is influenced or influences the vocation, the job that you choose, how it also influences your emphasis on apologetics and worldview. And Jimmy, you are doing work with Cold Case Christianity, which if anyone wants to find Jim and Jimmy, go to coldcasechristianity.com and you'll find articles and videos that you're both doing, right?
Yes, I should be contributing a little bit more lately than I have been, but we do have a book out. So I didn't contribute nothing, but you'll definitely find Jay Warner and occasionally you'll see me pop up there.
Well, I did want to bring that up to make you feel guilty because your output is
I need to be convicted.
We are going to do more, but we're going to do it. So it's hard when you have kids, right? So he's in that period right now with a 2.
He's just making excuses for me
I was
right
going
now.
to say, no, you are in a unique stage of
It's
life.
a unique
where
stage.
You're working full time as a cop, and you have little kids. And so there are seasons of life. Ecclesiastes talks about different seasons, and you're just in a season where you don't get quite as much sleep,
right?
And you're kind of just so busy. So the fact that you're doing anything besides what you're doing,
and a lot of this too is
huge.
I think when I was his age, I was a pretty decent churchman. I mean, I was involved in the church. I was serving in the church. I was the youth pastor, the children's ministry. There's a time when you're really better. Then what happens is I retired, I wrote books, and then you're traveling. I'm never home on Sunday. Or I'm getting home super late on Saturday night and I'm tapped out on Sunday. So you become less of a churchman as you should be. And now I'm out here speaking at churches, but I'm never in my own church. He's in a season right now where I can see that his future contributions for a season now are going to be in his home church, because that's where you can tell already he's getting ready to teach classes. Because that's where you are in that season, and your kids get to come to church with you. My kids can't travel with me when I go all around the country. That's why at some point there's a season for us now to come back to the local church, to get plugged in again, to travel less.